Man, what a fucking day, bro. I just finished up an 8.5 mile run in Richmond. Just got done around Belle Isle. Literally ran all throughout Richmond. Felt amazing. I usually don't hit afternoon runs, but, it felt great. So, I'm so happy I did, Got me feeling really good. I seen someone playing a piano in the middle of the bridge, which was dope. I'll put up a little clip of that. Listen, today I want to film a little Gumption Talk. Haven't made one of these in a little bit. I've been on the road. I just came back from a Miami trip, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk about today. And I usually don't hit these Gumption Talks while I'm driving, but I'm just so amped up right now after I finish up my run. I hit that second wind and I was just going. I was at 4 miles and I just really felt out of it. And I know every time I feel out of it, I just keep going and pays off. I feel great. 8.5 miles done. I burned 1,000 calories. I'm going to have an amazing cheat meal and it's going to feel great. I got a cut too today, which it's just a good day today. But as always, I can never get too high in the highs or too low in the lows. So just have to remain complacent with my emotional state and just continue to put in inputs every single day. But let me get into what I want to talk about today, which is Miami. I didn't talk about this on my YouTube channel, but I've been documenting my trip on my Instagram, and I posted up some pictures on my Instagram as well. So if you're not already on my Instagram, I have my link in my description. Easy for you to see. So go ahead, click that, and you can see like my documentation of my Miami trip. But basically, there was a mastermind event going down in Miami that my mentorship group is hosting. I'm part of a mentorship with John Mark Stevenson, and he's based out in Miami, Florida, and that's where his team is. So they held the first event of our little mentorship group, our event team, I guess that's how you say it. I don't know if I'm bleeding. But anyways, bro, man, coming from Richmond, Virginia, it is so small compared to Miami. Like after waking up to the Brickell Key view, I feel like the entire Richmond skyline can fit into Brickell Key, which is fucking crazy. And if you don't know what Brickell Key is, it's a little area in Miami, just like, I guess it's like the residential area, and it's like its own little private island, which is crazy. And again, coming from Richmond is relatively small compared to most of the major cities in America. Coming from a small city, I'm blown out of the water just by seeing Brickell Key, let alone the Miami skyline. But that's what I want to talk about today. So, man, where do I start? So, having the opportunity to go to Miami is such a blessing in itself, and I'm so grateful that I took that opportunity and even had the chance to take that opportunity up. And originally, the event was announced about 2 weeks ago, right? And they were saying, listen guys, we announced the event, you had to pay some money to get in. Obviously it's an event, you have to pay for your reservation. That's how you get commitment. That only makes sense. And they said a reservation fee of $1,000, right? And they said after today, they announced the event 2 weeks ago on Sunday, right? They said after today, at Monday at 12 p.m, we're gonna raise the prices to $1,500. And dude, right now I'm a college dropout. I am broke. I can't afford $1,000. So the entire day Monday I spent contemplating. I was thinking how the fuck am I gonna make this Miami trip work? Because I everything my body was telling me I have to go to that Miami trip. So I spent the whole day. I was at vacation with my girl. I took my girl to Charleston, South Carolina, which is a little beach area. It was such an amazing vacation, by the way. And my girl can vouch for me to say I've never been so anxious and stressed out that day. The whole day I literally was spent, you could tell, she could tell you I was so anxious the whole day. And it was kind of weird because everything my body was telling me you have to go, because one thing about me, I set goals based on inputs and characteristics that I have for my future self. And one characteristic that I write down in my journal every single morning when I wake up at 4:15 a.m. is I will surround myself with 150 degrees. 150 degree to me, that means a person with an internal thermostat of 150 degrees for finances, for their mentality, for their consciousness. So just people on higher levels than me, I desire to be around them, because what will happen if I continue to push myself to be around them? They will eventually heat me up to somewhere in between. Let's say if I was a 70 degree internal temperature for my finances, if I was around 150 degree, they would heat me up somewhere in between just by being around them. So I made a goal within myself to surround myself with 150 degrees. That's what I mean. And because that is a characteristic I hold true to myself, like that's what was telling me, like, Ferris, you have to go to Miami, because all of these guys that I was going to be around for that mastermind event were all 150 degrees in their respective category. So I knew I had to go. It was just the finances were the problem. I was just like talking to my girl. I was like, how am I going to make this work? I was like, I could stay in my car. I could get like a really cheap motel. All of the places I was looking at were like pretty expensive. And, you know, I think it was about 9 p.m. I was going to sleep, and I was getting ready to go to sleep. And I was just so anxious. I was like, telling my girlfriend, I was like, Berkeley, I have to make a decision. I have to make a decision. I talked it out with her. I talked it out with my sister, and I was like, I made the decision not to go, and I felt good with that decision because I knew I couldn't afford it at the time. So a week goes by, and the event is that Thursday, right? And the day is Wednesday. So a day before the event, right? Something in my body, something in my head just told me, like, I just wanted to, so let me tell you this other story, right? Because I was bummed out about Miami, and I was like, I'm not going to get the chance to surround myself with, like, these people. Like, I was really excited to, like, see these people, because these are guys that I've been working with online, and obviously, like, there's a physical aspect to it. Like, that's when you really commit yourself to your goal, your dream, your business. It's like physically pushing yourself next to them. So I was bummed out about Miami, and then I got a little advertisement on YouTube saying Ed Milet is speaking in Richmond, Virginia. And I was like, holy shit, because Ed Milet, he is, if you don't know who he is, look him up. He's a multi, like deca millionaire, very successful guy, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, top personal development speaker, I think, in all podcasters. And he was speaking in Richmond, Virginia. So I was like, this has to be a sign from God, like making up for Miami. So it was $25 for Ed Milet event. So I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going. So I caught up with my boys. I was like, hey, Ed Milet's coming to Virginia. And he's like, dude, I'm not paying that much for a ticket, because I didn't tell him the price yet. And I told him it was $25. He's like, all right, bro, I'm going. So I made the tickets to the Ed Milet event. I felt better about deciding not to go to Miami. And I made a little post in our community group chat for the mentorship. I said, I'm bummed out about going to Miami. Like, finances were the issue for me. And, you know, I made up for it. I got into Ed Milet event. And one of the students in the mentorship responded to my post. And he's kind of known as the OG. He's like a 40-year-old guy, entrepreneur for, I think, 20 plus years. Wise guy, respectable guy, right? And basically, I tell the story about the day after the event was announced. Like, I spent the whole day just anxious. Like, I was around my girl, deciding whether or not to go to Miami, and I was like telling them the story. I was like, I decided not to go. And I even like gave this little story when me and my girl went out to like Charleston for shopping. We were at the cash register, and this girl like came up to me saying, oh, you look so Miami. Bro, never in my life have I got a comment like that saying I look so Miami. What does that even mean? I'm Arab. So anyways, I say that in the community post. I tell that story. I'm like, I even had a girl come up to me saying I look Miami, and I was like, that had to be a sign from God. So I say that, and the older guy, the OG, his name's Ty Wynn, he says, "You're right, Ferris, that was a sign from God and you chose to ignore it." So I read that over, I read what he said, and then he told me a little story about himself. He said, "Ferris, there's levels of commitment to entrepreneurship. Let me say that again. There are levels of commitment to entrepreneurship." And he was telling me stories about when he first started being an entrepreneur, like he had to do a lot just to get to events like this. He said it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You would be stupid for passing it up. He said, "I've slept on couches before. I slept in motels, bathtubs. I've pawned stuff. I've sold stuff. I took out loans just to make the opportunity work." Because why? There's a difference between spending money on something like an event where you're going to get value back in it in terms of knowledge, or spending your money on something like fast food where it's just instant gratification hit and it's gone, or instant dopamine hit and it's gone, right? So that made sense to me. And I was like, my heart was beating. I was like, dude, he's so right. I made the wrong decision not going to Miami. And I called my friend Sal, and shit, I'm stuck in traffic. Hold on. So I call one of my buddies, right? And like I tell him, like, dude, my heart's beating so fast. Like I tell him like everything I just told y'all. And I was like, Sal, I have to go to Miami. Like I have to make this work. I'm not gonna get an opportunity like this again. Like this, I have to make this work. So Sal tells me, a little bit of context before I say this, but I grew up without religion being forced on me. My parents never forced religion on me, so I never really knew too much about faith, never knew too much about God. And I've mentioned him a couple times in this Gumption Talk alone, but I'm starting to take steps towards faith, towards God, and I'm starting to develop my faith. So he knows that, I know that, and right now I'm not tied to any religion right now. I'm just trying to educate myself and just slowly walk myself along this journey. So that's the context before I get into this next part. But I called Sal, and I'm like, Sal, first off, I'm like, Sal, is this logically possible? Because I drive a BMW 320i 2017. It's a very nice car, and I'm so fortunate to have it. But then again, Miami from Richmond is 950 miles. So I call Sal, and I'm like, Sal, how logical would it be to take my car 950 miles down to Miami, Florida? He's like, Ferris, it has a good engine. Hold on. He's like, Ferris, it has a good engine. You probably can make it. So I'm like, okay, that's all I really need to hear. And he feels like the emotion coming from me about this decision. He's like, it's a big decision. Like, oh shit, some guy done crashed. Damn, he got smacked. Damn. I hope they're good though. Sorry about that. So, okay. So, he knew I was studying the Quran. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm just studying the Quran to educate myself about faith. And, most of my extended family are Muslims. So, I'm studying the Quran first and educate myself about that before I tie myself down to any religion and make an educated decision rather than just blindly walk towards something that I don't have any context about. So Sal tells me, he said, Ferris, open the Quran to any page you want. And I do exactly that. I get my Quran from my bookshelf and I open the page. It was chapter 26. I think it was verse 273. The first line, it said, do not reject the messenger. I read that out to Sal. And I felt out of body. He was feeling out of body. He was like, Ferris. He was like, keep reading. And I can't recite all of it off my head, but the very last thing that I read on that page was, surely in this is a message. when I tell y'all, I've never felt so out of body. I just felt like there was a higher presence beyond me just guiding me right there. And again, whether you believe in God, whether you don't, like, I'm telling y'all right now, I've never had religion forced on me in my childhood, and I'm blindly taking steps towards faith right now, and I'm just learning about it. So I'm just experiencing all of this for the first time, and feeling out of body like that, like I was feeling like some sort of euphoria feeling when I read those lines off. And as I was on FaceTime with Sal, he's like, "Are you gonna do it? Are you gonna go to Miami?" And I already booked the ticket. So I already booked the ticket Wednesday night. Miami was on Thursday night. I had no way of going down. I had no idea what was gonna happen. I bought the ticket, $1,000. They didn't change the price for some reason. I feel like they just said that to kind of pressure people into going, which is fine. I mean, they want commitment, it makes sense. So luckily it was $1,000, and I was able to finance that over the course of 18 months, which is in no context, that is the most retarded decision you could ever make, is finance $1,000 payment over 18 months, which, as I'm saying this now, you're probably thinking, what the fuck? Financing $1,000, like I'm paying $150 in interest, so I'm paying $1,100 for a trip to Miami over the next 18 months. But $1,000, I mean, really think about it, over the next 18 months, I'll pay it back. I'm not worried about that at all. I have full conviction of myself. I've never, like, my credit score is fucking nice, and I've never had an issue with finances. But as I'm stepping into entrepreneurship, like, obviously finances, like, you have to be able to spend, take risk, you know? So I financed $1,000 over the next 18 months, so I pay $0 for the event, and I get my ticket to go. No way of going down. And that's why I asked Sal, I was like, "Sal, do you think my car is gonna make it down to Florida, to Miami?" Like, look up Miami on the map from Richmond. Miami is at the very tip of Florida, the very bottom of America. And Richmond is very, like, literally in the middle, a little bit further up the East Coast even. So it was a 15-hour drive, 950 miles. I drove it. I have a vlog. I vlogged the entire trip that I'm going to be posting. I don't know if it's before this video or after this video, but check it on my YouTube. I vlogged the whole Miami experience. 15-hour drive. You're probably thinking, Ferris, was it worth it? I didn't even get there yet, and it was worth it. Just sitting in the car with myself, with my thoughts for 15 hours taught me so much about myself, about my mental capacity to handle more. To like ask yourself legitimately, could you sit in the car with yourself for 15 hours? I'm gonna tell y'all right now, like, I was caffeinated like shit. And if you watch that vlog over, you're gonna see it. I was hella caffeinated. Like, I drank 3 Ghost energy drinks in a day. And I don't, like, in that video, I say repeatedly, I say, do as I say, not as I do, because I will never drink 3 energy drinks in a day again unless I'm doing another 15-hour drive. So I crushed those 15 hours. It is a journey in itself. And this is the last story I'm gonna tell in this Gumption Talk, but maybe I'll save more stories for later. And I've vlogged the entire Miami experience, so that's storytelling in itself. But, you know, booked the Miami trip the day before I left. No way of knowing how I'm gonna get down, the side I'm gonna drive, no way of knowing where I'm gonna stay. My plan A was staying in a hotel BMW. This is hotel BMW. This was gonna be my bed. And what's the word for it? Foreshadowing. It wasn't. So while I'm driving those 15 hours, I get a call from my girlfriend, Berkeley. Berkeley calls me. She's like, Ferris, I really don't want you staying in a motel. I mean, my bad, I just foreshadowed again. I really don't want you staying in your car. I don't think that's safe. So I'm like, Berkeley, you know, that's a valid decision. I just didn't know how I was gonna get down, and I was okay with sleeping in my car. Like, what Ty Wayne told me, the OG, he was like, you gotta be able to take a risk. He was like, I've slept in my car before. So I was like, I've slept in my car before. I mean, it wasn't for reasons like this. I've slept in my car for girls before, but I mean, I'll be able to sleep in my car again, sure. So my girl convinces me to get a motel, and this story gets really interesting, so hear this out. My girl convinces me to get a motel, $30 a night for Miami, Florida. And just for context, for 3 days it was $130, and that was the cheapest option obviously, $30 a night. The second cheapest option was for 3 days, $850. So already there, about a $750 difference. So you're probably thinking, Ferris, you probably can't have high expectations for this motel, right? Ferris, where the hell did you go? And again, I've vlogged this whole thing, so check it out. Check it out after you watch this video. Probably thinking, Ferris, what is this motel? So I left Richmond at 4 a.m. on Thursday morning, and I didn't get to Miami, Florida until 8 p.m. same day. So I had been driving for 14, 15 hours at that point. Got stuck in Miami traffic, which I now know what Miami traffic is. And I got to Miami. I saw the skyline, and being from Richmond, I'm like, holy shit. Holy shit. Skyline was crazy, and I was just blown away by that. And I was taking videos of the skyline when I got there because I was so excited, and I got kind of distracted. I almost rear-ended a Maybach, which probably would have been a better story because then I'd have to pay insurance, which I don't know how the hell I would have, but luckily didn't rear-end the Maybach. And before this week, I had no clue what Brickell is. And if you don't know what Brickell is, it's basically like the big street in Miami where everything happens, all the SVJs, Ferraris, etc., etc. Very, very nice street in Miami. So I get to Brickell, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Nothing like, I've never experienced anything like it. So I get to Brickell, crazy. And then I started driving. I had no expectations of a Brickell type motel. I don't think that's even possible. Get to Brickell. I drive about 10 minutes off of Brickell. 10 minutes off of Brickell. And I know cities well. I've lived in Richmond for 16 years. I have some street smarts, Drive 10 minutes off of Brickell. I look around, and some of the houses are broken into. So I'm like, okay, not really the best sign. And I keep driving. And I look to my left, and I see two girls walking alone. I'm like, okay, green flag, girls walking alone in a city. Must be a safe area. I look a little bit closer, they're hookers. Not a green flag. And at that point, I was a minute away from my motel. So I get to my motel, and from the outside, it looked like a $30 a night kind of place. Not really the best looking. I saw couples and shit arguing outside of it. And I get there, there's bars around the receptionist window. Receptionist doesn't speak English. And luckily I know a little bit of Spanish, so I talk to her a little bit, use Google Translate as well. And and she's nice. She's a really nice lady. And she's telling me yeah, your room, it's a 6-person dorm room. And I'm like, 6-person dorm room? I've gone to college before. I'm like, okay, $30 a night, what can I expect? It's gonna be really uncomfortable, I'll check it out. She's like, there's already 2 people in there, you wanna check it out? And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I get in there, the room is pitch black. There are 2 dudes in there. The one dude, he's a older guy. I think he's Hispanic. I don't think he spoke English. And he's walking around with an oxygen tank strapped next to him. Obviously has health issues, didn't speak English. The other guy, he was an American guy, black dude. His face was 2 feet away from me when I opened up the door. Again, pitch black. And, hold on. And, I was trying to talk to him because he looked like the only guy who could speak English in that room. So I was like, what's up, bro? I was trying to talk to him. I was like, are you doing well here? Is everything okay? He just looks at me. He looks in my eyes. He just stares at me. I mean, is it wrong for me assuming he spoke English? He looks very American, so I really do think he spoke English. But he was just staring me dead in my soul. So I got really fucking creeped out. And I stepped out of the room. The receptionist stepped out too. She was helping out some other guests. And I was freaking out. I was literally shaking. And I knew no one at Miami at that point except one of the guys on the team. He's a closer for my mentor, John Mark. His name's Simon. And, you know, he took my sales call, so I had some trust built with him. I had some rapport built with him like that. I had that call with him in November. It's, March? It is March right now. And I call Simon. I'm like, I'm telling him the situation. I'm like freaking out. I'm shaking. He can hear my emotion through the phone. And I'm like, Simon, dude, I really can't stay here. Like, this is really bad. I'm telling you, I can't stay here. I'm like, just tell me like a safe place I can stay in Miami, that I can like park my car and sleep there for the night. He's like, Ferris, dude, we want you to be safe. I have a couch at my apartment. Just stay here. So out of the kindness of his own heart, no one told him. He offered me a place to stay, and I was able to stay in that room. And I get there, and it was the tallest building in Miami, Florida. It was the tallest building on Brickell. So my experience in Miami was a 10 out of 10. I'm so glad I pushed myself through that. I'm so glad that I went to that motel and had no clue of what I was doing. And I know I've been rambling for a little while, but hopefully you took some value out of the story. Push yourself to discomfort. Look for discomfort zones, because that's where you grow. I learned a lot from myself this week, and I learned a lot from the guys that I was around. I regret nothing. I came out a better man. I feel great. I hope you got some value out of this talk. Other than that, I'll see y'all boys later. Peace.